Canada's flight reductions to the U.S. signal escalating trade tensions with global implications? Could this be the tipping point that reshapes America's role in the global economy? In early 2025, Canada responded to new U.S. tariffs, 25% on Canadian steel, aluminum, and other goods, by reducing non-essential flights to the United States. Major airlines like Air Canada and WestJet cut several U.S. routes due to declining demand. The absence of Canadian tourists, a key spending force in destinations like Florida, Nevada, and New York, is already hitting the U.S. economy hard. Tourism-dependent states report losses in the billions, with thousands of hospitality workers now facing job cuts or reduced hours. Hotel bookings have dropped sharply, and local restaurants, attractions, and small retailers are struggling to stay afloat. What was once a winter migration has become a painful economic freeze. Furthermore, flight bookings from Canada to the U.S. for the April to September 2025 period decreased by more than 70% compared to the previous year, leading to significant revenue losses in the travel and tourism sectors. Amid U.S. trade policy uncertainties, countries such as China, Japan, and Germany are redirecting trade and investment toward Canada. Canada's stable trade agreements and transparent policies make it an attractive alternative for global partners. This shift is costing the United States tens of billions in lost export opportunities, especially in agriculture, energy, machinery, and tech. American farmers are seeing fewer foreign buyers, manufacturers are holding excess inventory, and once booming export hubs are slowing down, dragging the fragile post-pandemic recovery into uncertainty, layoffs are expected to rise in export-driven sectors, adding pressure to already stretched local economies. The OECD has significantly downgraded its U.S. economic growth forecast for 2025 from 2.8% to 1.6%, attributing the slowdown to rising trade tariffs and policy uncertainty. Travel restrictions have led many Canadian snowbirds to sell their U.S. vacation properties, especially in Florida and Arizona. Real estate agencies report a surge in listings from Canadian owners unable to utilize their properties due to travel limitations. Entire communities in southern states that cater to Canadian retirees are seeing cash flow dry up. From local pharmacies and diners to hospitals and home repair services, many businesses are seeing fewer customers and shrinking profits. In Florida alone, some resort towns report over 40% declines in winter season revenues, forcing layoffs and threatening closures. The economic chill isn't just seasonal, it's structural. Notably, in Scottsdale, Arizona, Canadian property listings jumped from around 100 in early 2024 to nearly 700 in the first quarter of 2025, indicating a significant sell-off that could impact local real estate markets. Canada's trade actions highlight a broader trend of countries reevaluating their economic ties with the U.S. Allies like Germany and Japan express concerns over U.S. trade policies, leading to strengthened partnerships elsewhere. As the U.S. becomes more isolated in global trade, consumers may face higher prices and limited product availability. Businesses could lose international market share, affecting profits and employment rates domestically. Coca-Cola is closing multiple plants across the U.S., triggering job losses, price hikes, and local economic shifts. How will these changes reshape the American beverage landscape? Since early 2024, Coca-Cola has initiated closures of several plants across the United States, directly impacting hundreds of jobs. Notably, the company confirmed the permanent shutdown of its bottling facility in American Canyon, California. with the main closure phase beginning on June 30th, 2025, affecting 135 employees. Additionally, layoffs at the Modesto, California facility will result in 101 job losses by January 2025. The impact on local communities is significant. Towns that have long depended on these facilities for employment and economic stability are now facing uncertainty. Workers, particularly those over 50, may find it challenging to secure new employment opportunities, leading to potential financial hardships and increased reliance on social support systems. The closures also affect local businesses that provided services to the plants and their employees, amplifying the economic ripple effect. In March 2025, the U.S. government imposed a 25% tariff on imported aluminum, which was further increased to 50% in June 2025. These tariffs have escalated production costs for beverage companies, including CocaCola, which relies on aluminum for its cans. The increased costs are prompting the company to consider shifting more of its packaging from aluminum cans to PET plastic bottles to mitigate expenses. For consumers, these changes may lead to higher prices for canned beverages, while the exact price increase per can is estimated to be about 1 cent. The cumulative effect could make popular drinks less affordable for some households, especially those with fixed incomes or tight budgets. Additionally, the shift from aluminum to plastic packaging raises environmental concerns, as plastic bottles have a higher environmental footprint, potentially conflicting with consumer preferences for sustainable packaging. The closures and operational changes are affecting several states. California, the shutdown of the American Canyon plant and layoffs in Modesto are impacting local employment and economies. Georgia, as the headquarters of Coca-Cola, any corporate restructuring could have ripple effects on the state's economy, particularly in Atlanta. Texas and Ohio, while specific closures have not been confirmed, these states may experience indirect effects due to supply chain adjustments and potential future operational changes. Communities in these states are bracing for economic challenges, including job losses and decreased local spending, which could affect small businesses and public services. The uncertainty surrounding Coca-Cola's operations may also deter future investments in these regions, potentially leading to longer-term economic stagnation. The U.S. economy is navigating a complex terrain, shaped by rising tariffs, a weakening dollar, and shifting investment flows. How will these dynamics influence everyday life for Americans? The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, has revised its U.S. GDP growth projection for 2025 downward to 1.6%, a significant drop from the 2.8% growth recorded in 2025-2024. This adjustment is primarily attributed to the substantial increase in import tariffs implemented by the Trump administration, which have disrupted global trade and supply chains. The heightened tariffs have led to increased costs for imported goods, resulting in higher prices for consumers on everyday items. Industries such as retail, automotive, construction, and technology are experiencing increased operational costs, which may lead to job reductions and decreased consumer spending power. The OECD also projects that inflation, as measured by the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, will rise to 3.9% by the end of 2025, potentially delaying further Federal Reserve rate cuts. The U.S. dollar index, DXY, has declined by approximately 9% since the beginning of 2025, reflecting diminished investor confidence. This depreciation is influenced by concerns over trade policies and economic stability. A weaker dollar increases the cost of imported goods, contributing to higher inflation and affecting the purchasing power of consumers. Additionally, it can lead to increased interest rates on loans and mortgages, placing further financial strain on households. Financial institutions like Goldman Sachs anticipate that the dollar could slide by as much as 10% over the next 12 months, signaling potential challenges ahead for the U.S. economy. In response to economic uncertainties, investors are turning to gold as a safe haven asset. Gold prices have surged to record highs, reaching over $3,300 per ounce. Higher yields often mean higher borrowing costs. For those looking to buy a home or finance large purchases, monthly payments may increase significantly. Additionally, market swings have hit retirement accounts and savings plans, eroding long-term financial security for millions of Americans. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that if 10-year yields average 4.4% over the next decade, it could add an additional $1.8 trillion to the national debt, potentially leading to higher taxes or reduced government services. Global investors are reallocating capital to markets perceived as more stable, such as those in Asia and Europe. This shift is driven by concerns over U.S. trade policies and economic direction. Less foreign investment could slow job creation and delay infrastructure upgrades across the country. In the long term, continued capital flight raises the risk of economic stagnation or even recession. Without adequate funding, critical sectors may struggle to expand, limiting opportunities for workers and businesses alike. Analysts at J.P. Morgan Private Bank note that the dollar has not exhibited its usual safe haven status in 2025, indicating a shift in investor sentiment. America is losing billions as foreign tourists disappear, draining a vital piece of the economy. Why are travelers avoiding the United States in growing numbers? In 2025, the U.S. economy is projected to lose approximately $12.5 billion in international visitor spending, with total spending expected to fall to just under $169 billion, from $181 billion in 2024. This decline is attributed to a 9.4% drop in international arrivals, including a 20.2% decrease in visitors from Canada. The downturn has led to empty hotel rooms, canceled flights, and shuttered tour services, signaling a silent collapse with far-reaching consequences. The impact on American workers is significant. Industries once thriving on international guests are now in decline. Job losses are mounting, particularly among hourly wage workers. Front desk clerks, cab drivers, tour guides, and cleaning crews. These individuals, heavily reliant on foreign spending, are among the first to feel the economic strain. The World Travel and Tourism Council warns that this downturn could result in the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs across the U.S. The shift is global. Canada, historically a major source of U.S. visitors, has seen a 20% drop in AIR travel and a 35% decrease in land crossings. This downturn is fueled by opposition to U.S. immigration policies and reports of detentions at borders. China has issued a risk alert for its citizens traveling to the U.S., citing safety concerns amid escalating trade tensions. European countries, and including France and Germany, have also updated their travel advisories, warning citizens about potential risks when visiting the U.S. for local businesses. The disappearance of international tourists is palpable. In Las Vegas, international arrivals have dropped by 7.8%, leading to decreased casino revenues and canceled shows. Hawaii's tourism industry is struggling, with a significant decline in Japanese visitors, who are not projected to return to pre-pandemic levels this decade. In New York City, the forecast for international tourists has been reduced by 17%, equating to 800,000 fewer visitors. Certain regions are nearing a tipping point. Florida's beach resorts are experiencing closures due to the decline in Canadian and European visitors. In Nevada, Las Vegas has seen a 7.8% decrease in visitors, with gaming revenues on the Strip dropping by 4.8%. Hawaii's tourism backbone is under pressure, with Japanese arrivals down by 14.5% compared to the previous year. Airbnb hosts and shuttle services are facing reduced demand. In New York, international tourism is expected to fall by 17%, largely attributed to policy changes and international perceptions. Behind these statistics are American families, from waitstaff in Orlando to museum docents in Manhattan. Individuals are confronting layoffs, reduced hours, and growing uncertainty. The decline in international tourism reverberates through communities, affecting livelihoods and local economies in New York City alone. The tourism sector employs over 400,000 people, and the projected drop in visitors could jeopardize many of these jobs. Airbus has overtaken Boeing in global aircraft production, reshaping the aviation industry in 2025. But how will these shifts impact American jobs in air travel? Airbus has officially surpassed Boeing to become the world's leading commercial aircraft manufacturer, now commanding approximately 56% of the global market, compared to Boeing's 40%. At the core of this success is the A320neo family, particularly the A321neo, which has become the best-selling aircraft of its class. By 2025, over 19,000 A320neo jets have been ordered, with more than 7,000 units still awaiting delivery. Airbus has strategically expanded assembly lines across the U.S., China, and Europe to meet surging demand and ensure regional adaptability. This global expansion has direct implications for the American workforce. Airbus's U.S. production facilities, such as the one in Mobile, Alabama, are projected to increase hiring, offering opportunities in engineering, manufacturing, and logistics. However, this growth places additional pressure on Boeing to retain domestic contracts and jobs, particularly in states heavily reliant on aerospace employment like Washington and South Carolina. Boeing has not posted a profit since 2018 and continues to battle major production and quality control issues. Its troubled 737 MAX program remains a focal point, especially after a 2024 mid-air incident involving a door panel intensified scrutiny. Combined with earlier crashes and delays in international certifications, especially in China, Boeing's reputation has suffered, hindering global sales. The absence of a direct competitor to the A321neo further weakens Boeing's foothold in the medium-range, single-aisle segment. As a result, it continues to lose market share to Airbus. For American communities tied to Boeing's supply chain, this turbulence spells uncertainty. Reduced aircraft orders can translate into job cuts, weakened local economies, and a ripple effect on thousands of subcontractors and suppliers nationwide. The Trump administration's announcement of increased tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, now at 50% effective June 4, 2025, adds another layer of complexity for the aviation sector. Boeing, while primarily assembling aircraft domestically, depends heavily on imported high-grade materials for key structural components. These costlier inputs could raise production expenses and shrink already thin profit margins. For American consumers and businesses, the new tariffs may lead to more expensive airline tickets, fewer flight options, and a tighter travel network. As airlines face higher costs, they could pass them on to passengers, impacting leisure and business travel alike. Moreover, companies reliant on affordable logistics may face delivery delays and inflated transportation expenses, especially for time-sensitive goods. Airbus is set to deliver 820 aircraft in 2025, up from 766 in 2024, despite supply chain and tariff challenges. Boeing faces pressure to develop a new model to compete with the A321neo, though no plans have been announced. Meanwhile, emerging players like China's Comac and Brazil's Embraer are gaining ground, offering cost-effective alternatives that could disrupt markets in Asia and Latin America. This intensifying competition could benefit American travelers through innovation and improved service quality. However, it may also challenge U.S. manufacturers to protect jobs and maintain technological leadership in a rapidly evolving global market. American agricultural exports are facing a steep downturn, particularly in trade with China, as newly imposed tariffs take their toll. Is the sector entering a prolonged decline, or can it recover from the ongoing crisis? Exports of American sorghum to China fell by 95% in early 2025, from over 1.4 million tons to just 78,000 tons, amid escalating trade tensions and retaliatory tariffs. At key ports like Oakland, shipments of almonds, hay, eggs, and dairy products are piling up due to canceled contracts and punitive tariffs as high as 125%. The logistics system is buckling under pressure. Containers are backed up, warehousing FEs are soaring, and perishable goods are being written off. The backlog threatens not only export profits, but also domestic supply chains, raising fears of food shortages and sustained price increases for American households. The U.S. government's decision to impose tariffs of up to 145% on Chinese goods has triggered major disruptions in the global agricultural supply chain. China, once a top buyer of U.S. produce, has pivoted toward alternative suppliers like Brazil and Argentina. Freight costs have surged. Chinese vessels now face port fees of up to $1.5 million when docking in the U.S., alongside stricter customs inspections and rising insurance premiums. Compounding the crisis, over 55% of U.S. farm exports rely on container shipping, a mode currently facing severe delays. Rising transport costs and tariffs are pushing food prices higher, placing new pressure on household budgets across the country. Input costs, fertilizer, fuel, machinery, and seeds have skyrocketed, while market prices for farm products have plunged due to oversupply and vanishing demand. Many farmers are choosing not to harvest at all, since the cost of doing so exceeds the expected sale price. Average farm incomes are falling fast, while consumers face the paradox of higher grocery prices, up nearly 18% over year, especially on essential goods. Small and mid-sized farms are the hardest hit. Many are forced to take on debt just to survive, while consumers shoulder the burden of rising costs with no clear end in sight. With the U.S. effectively sidelining the World Trade Organization, global trade dispute resolution has broken down. The EU and other major economies are signing bilateral deals with Canada, South Korea, and Japan, excluding the U.S. from key agricultural markets. Large agribusinesses may weather the storm, thanks to global networks and capital reserves, but small and medium farms are collapsing. While experts call for a New Deal-style recovery plan for agriculture, current policies seem to prioritize political posturing over practical solutions. This instability in trade and lack of support risk eroding public confidence, not only in the agricultural economy, but in the nation's broader commitment to fairness and resilience. Former President Trump's new steel tariff has ignited a major shift in North American trade and defense relations. Could this be the beginning of a global supply chain realignment? On June 4, 2025, former U.S. President Donald Trump enacted a significant increase in tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, raising them from 25% to 50% via executive order. This move, aimed at bolstering domestic industries, particularly impacts Canada, the U.S.'s largest supplier of these metals. Canada supplies nearly half of U.S. aluminum imports and a substantial portion of steel, making it a critical partner in sectors like defense, automotive, and aerospace. The tariff hike has disrupted the integrated supply chains between the U.S. and Canada. American manufacturers, especially in the Midwest, are facing material shortages and increased costs. Industries dependent on Canadian metals are experiencing production delays, leading to potential job losses and higher consumer prices. Economists warn that the increased costs for raw materials are expected to hurt manufacturers and consumers by raising prices on a wide range of goods, from engines to beverage cans. In response to the U.S. tariffs, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a strategic shift in foreign policy, emphasizing stronger ties with Europe. Canada has committed to joining the European Union's Readiness 2030 defense initiative, aiming to enhance military capabilities and reduce reliance on U.S. defense systems. Additionally, Canada is re-evaluating its trade relationships, seeking to diversify its export markets and lessen economic dependence on the U.S. The U.S. risks losing not just a key trade partner, but also one of its closest defense allies. Canada's alignment with European defense and economic structures could diminish U.S. influence in North America and open opportunities for other global powers to strengthen ties with Canada. This realignment may lead to reduced access to Canadian resources and markets for American businesses, potentially impacting sectors ranging from energy to agriculture. The sudden tariff increase has sent shockwaves through U.S. industries reliant on Canadian metals. Manufacturers in states like Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri are reporting immediate challenges, including halted production lines and financial losses. Despite warnings from industry experts about the potential fallout, the tariffs were implemented without a comprehensive legal framework, leading to confusion and uncertainty. The disruption in supply chains is expected to have long-term economic consequences. Businesses may face prolonged recovery periods, increased operational costs, and the need to find alternative suppliers, which could result in higher prices for consumers and potential job cuts in affected industries. For instance, U.S. manufacturers currently meet only about 20% of domestic transformer demand, creating a critical dependency on imports. Lead times have expanded from weeks to 80 to 120 weeks for some equipment, causing project delays of 1 to 2 years in some cases.